You tell me, Ms. Jen. Got it. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Power Up Candidate Conversation, Night 2. My name is Megan Sweeney, and I am the founder of Power Up. We are a grassroots coalition, and we believe that civic engagement is the key to representative democracy. This is our steering committee: Sue Sullivan, Terry Toro, Nellie Nell, Jeannie Lampkin, and Jen Schaffner, and obviously myself. Power Up is guided by these wonderful people, their brilliance, their creativity, and their love of community. And it has been an honor to work with all of them for about a year and a half now. Two of these amazing people are Jen Schaffner, who is a former school committee member, has been appointed by the governor to be on the Marblehead Housing Authority Board. Terry Toro is our Marblehead Municipal Employees Union president, as well as the labor representative on the Democratic Town Committee. And because that's just not enough, she is actually campaigning to be our Essex County District 8 representative, so taking Lori Ehrlich's seat. So we're pretty excited for that. Let's get started. Jeannie and I will be your facilitators for tonight. Elections are in 14 days. I still can't believe it myself. So we have a lot to do in these next couple of weeks to get out the vote and get people excited for this election. Our agenda tonight is pretty basic because we want to be able to hear from the candidates. Please use the chat function. It is enabled for any questions or comments. The candidates have been asked at their convenience to actually put their contact information into the chat as well. That way, when the meeting is complete, they can contact you and follow up with questions that you may have. Unfortunately, in the format that we have this evening, we do not have time to field questions from the chat, but we do want you to ask them. What is your vision for Marblehead and how will we get here? This is the foundation of this evening's session. Our objective is to celebrate our candidates because they are volunteering their time for us, to inform and engage the voters because we are an integral part of democracy, and to set the stage for a huge June 21st voter turnout. Our Power Up messaging, and consequently this evening's session and last evening's session, centers around government accountability, transparency, and civic engagement. And we've invited the candidates here to this forum so that they have an opportunity to tell us about their vision for Marblehead. We will start with the town moderator candidate and then go to Board of Health and the school committee, school board candidates as well. I'm going to pass off the baton to Jeannie Lampkin so she can have a little fun with you and the candidates tonight.
Thanks, Megan, and good evening to everybody. Welcome back to folks who joined us last night. You'll know where this question is going, and we will have this little fun icebreaker for all of our candidates who have joined us tonight. Will be kind of our first way to get to know each other. And we're going to raise the bar a little bit. So we like to hear, because we all love our town and we like to be hometown tourists. So we're going to ask each of the candidates to sort of chime in and share with us your favorite place to bring visitors to Marblehead. Though the images that you see here were offered to us last night, and because we're all thirsty to visit places in Marblehead, you can't name any of these. So you got to level up and give us some place other than Red's Pond, the Lighthouse, Chandler Hovey, or Fort Sewell. So we're going to give Sarah time to figure out how to come off mute where the kids are and go to Matt first. Don't name her favorite place if she's going to get mad at you. But Matt, where's your favorite place to bring people when they come to visit Marblehead?
I guess one of my favorite places to bring people in Marblehead, and it's pretty close to Red's Pond, but Fountain Park.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think it's kind of hidden. It's beautiful. It gives you a new perspective, and that's where I proposed to my wife.
Oh,
Even better.
all right, Sarah, are you listening? We'll give you a time to kind of one up that. Allison, how about you? Where are you? Where do you want to bring Marblehead visitors?
Yeah, so I grew up here, and probably throughout the years, I would have said someplace, different at each stage in my life. also I might cry because my father passed away 2 years ago, and he used to love, and we still go there now, and we're coming up with the anniversary of his death, which is why it's just all a lot to talk about, but it's important to talk about. Gas House Beach and walking out to Gary Island when it's at low tide, being able to like bring a picnic, search for some sea glass, at 2 years and it's still really fresh. Like, you know, that just, it hits you sometimes. So anyways, being able to go at any time of year really and bring a picnic. And now, of course, now that they've kind of, you know, my father would probably roll over knowing how cleaned up the island is, because it used to just be so much more brush, and him and my son would just kind of go weed whacking through it, you know, with their arms, pushing things aside, looking for treasures. My dad was a big boater, so we would look at boats. We would bring picnics out there. My son and I still do it. And it's right up the street from where we live. So it's kind of nice to have it be close. We can go to it at any point in time. And I just think it's beautiful there. You get to see a lot of the city, you know, walking the 360 of the island and get a little exercise at the same time. So can't beat it.
Love that. Thank you. And sorry for pulling at your heartstrings.
Oh, no, that's okay.
That was really great. How about Tom? What's your recommendation?
Well, similar to Allison, I'm a lifer, so that answer changes over time. I bet if you asked either one of us when we were 21, we'd both say Maddie's, but that has changed. I'm an Old Town guy. You know, I grew up in Old Town and I live in Old Town now. And so I'd say that, you know, it's kind of a combo where at some point you got to hit the driftwood. That's real Marblehead right there, but early in the morning. But otherwise, I grew up playing at Crocker Park, and the view there now, like while I was playing there as a kid, and I bring my dog there now, the view there is, I mean, that embodies all of Marblehead.
Oh, thank you. That is awesome. And Sarah, sorry that we held the big reveal to let you run away and run back, but we did want to have a gotcha question. So we got you for the last hometown trivia. Where would you take us?
I love Fort Beach. During the warmer weather and sometimes not warmer weather, anytime that the low tide lines up with, you know, a good time to bring the kids, I'm there almost every day. It's, to me, it's got the most beautiful view. The kids can really go in the water, explore, and do things really independently and still stay safe. And it's never overcrowded, never. And there's a bathroom.
Oh my gosh, you have it all figured out. Thank you.
It is my favorite. Matt, I knew we would not have the same answer because he never prefers to, that's never his favorite spot to go.
So for those of you who just joined us, we are not actually on the Newlywed Game. We are still at our campaign conversations. But we have learned a little bit about the Wolverton and Fox household, saying no more. Thank you, everyone. And for everyone that's joined us, please don't be like me, tempted to jump off this call and go check out these places. Save it for tomorrow or the weekend. So thanks, everybody, for reminding us of some of the special places in town. And now we're going to get to know special people in town. I have the great privilege to be in the conversation with Matt around our town moderator role. And for everybody listening, I'm just going to kind of remind you, Megan sort of tipped this off. We struggle to cut our list of 1,000 questions to 5. We could manage and get everyone finished in a decent time tonight. But we know that as you hear the conversation, you may have more questions that pop. Feel free to type them into the chat. We're going to share the chat transcripts with all of the candidates, and they can use their platforms, their groups, their emails, however they want to follow up with you. We're just not going to have time to bring questions from the chat into the live conversation. So thank you for that. And without further ado, Matt, could you just maybe share with us for a few minutes, what is your vision for Marblehead? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Jean, and thank you to everybody for putting this together, everyone at Power Up. I think this is a great opportunity. You know, I guess my vision for Marblehead is pretty short and sweet. It's to have an informed and engaged community of people from various backgrounds who are willing to leverage their own individual expertise and experience for the benefit of the community as a whole. I think participation is key. As people have mentioned, we have one of the most, representative forms of democracy that exists anywhere in the country. And that in order for that to be successful, it requires participation by everybody.
I'm on you. Just wanted to sort of match with you. Thank you for that. How do you think about the role of town moderator and the role and responsibilities as you've come to understand it as you're running for this position?
Well, the role of town moderator is to run town meeting, in accordance with the warrant as it's published by the Board of Selectmen. And my goal would be to run the town meeting in an efficient manner that provides an opportunity for the presenters, supporters, and opponents on each and every article to voice their opinions, in a clear and respectful manner. Recognizing that within the authority of the moderator is the ability to limit discussion. As an attorney, I engage in negotiation every day, and I'm keenly aware of the importance of procedure as a safeguard to ensure that all parties are treated fairly. So in my opinion, the consistent and fair application of procedural rules is what would level, the proverbial playing field.
Excellent. And you sort of led into the follow-up in terms of mentioning your day job. Can you share a little bit more about the expertise you have or the experiences you've had that you think uniquely lend to your ability to be successful as town moderator?
Yeah. So I am a licensed practicing attorney in town now for 11 years. So I think that the skills and experience that I've obtained there are definitely, applicable in this setting. But I also think just personally outside of that, I consider myself to be fair-minded and impartial, someone that's capable of seeing both sides on any given issue, or at least I strive to. And I think those are the most relevant skills that I bring to the table.
As you think about shifting from an attendee, I'm sure you've been to town meeting, to moderator, if you reflect on your past role to the future role, what insights do you have on how you would moderate differently, or things that you're seeing as areas that you intend to focus on or emphasize as you take on the role?
I think first off, we've been very fortunate, in this town to have my predecessors. I think they've done a great job. But that being said, I think there's always room for improvement in anything. My goal would be to sort of carry on this tradition. And I think the two key components that we could expand on would be accessibility and communication. It's not 2 nights a year, it's a year-round position. And so I think that, being available and communicating with community members, with board members, with the Board of Selectmen, going forward in preparation is the areas that we could see more improvement.
Excellent. And then maybe if you can just go into that a little bit, how you think those things could lead to, or other things you would add to really strengthen or deepen voter engagement, and maybe even to boost town meeting attendance. Like, is that a metric you'd think about in terms of the turnout, or what are your thoughts on how to really
absolutely
democracy?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great question. I think the key to a successful town meeting is encouraging participation. I think that everyone should feel comfortable speaking and, advocating for their particular position, one way or the other. And so I think, reaching out to community members, encouraging participation, at a high level through social media and other methods of communication. And then also just at a simple, being accessible and available, whether it's you run into someone at Starbucks and so on and so forth. It's a small town. Right now I work around the clock. I'm available 24/7. It's just the nature of my job. And so I would continue that in this position. I think it's about communication and accessibility to the public in advance of the meeting, so that everyone's on the same page and that everyone feels comfortable and willing to participate.
Excellent. So this actually you would think we scripted this. Sort of sets up the question that I am getting a little bit into that sort of year-round versus 1 or 2 nights, and your lens around procedure. If we can talk a little about the role of the town moderator, responsibilities, whether they're explicit or implicit, when it comes to articles and the warrant overall, in terms of preparation and process. And maybe if you think of it through the lens, we're all citizens here, like, what's your thoughts about, citizen-sponsored articles and what the life of that would be? Like, how, if somebody on this call was sitting here thinking they got in their head something they'd like to bring forward next town meeting, how would you describe to them what they could expect from Matt Wolverton as the arc of the year, and how that would go, what you would intend to do to make that sort of, journey to town meeting for the article and the citizen sponsor work better?
Right. I mean, I think getting started early on in the process is key. The role of the town moderator is somewhat restrained in terms of assistance with preparation and so on and so forth. But I think getting involved and providing guidance as to, procedure and proper form to avoid any last minute, issues or panics. I think that is a very unique aspect of our democracy, and it has incredible value. The fact that anybody can, walk through these channels and bring something before the town meeting and before the community as a whole is incredible power. And I think it's key, it's crucial. But that being said, I think that getting started early on the process, and then again, going back to just accessibility and availability, getting on early and working with them to make sure that as to form and procedure, that they're following it through the process to be successful.
Excellent. That's very helpful. And I guess the other place that I'll just take it in terms of the town meeting, I just wanted to circle back a little bit. You talked about accessibility. Do you have any thoughts about, like, how you would sort of look to make that happen, or who you'd need to collaborate with to make that happen, in that making it more accessible? Because I just wanted to sort of come back to that one, since it proved to be so important for us in the COVID times to figure out all the ways that we had to flex to make town meeting happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different, I think providing the most channels for access is key, because everybody in town has other things going on. And so not everything is sort of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So weekends and evenings being available. And then I think possibly, opening up some sort of, whether it's virtually or in person, office hours where people can come in and have conversations, again, early on in the process. I think that's really key, is if you have something that you're concerned about or that you want to bring forward, the sooner we can get started together, the more likely of, the better the likelihood of success down the road.
Excellent. So everybody listening, note June 22nd and a half. And you want to sort of reach out. So I'm going to just bring it to the last question. And this one is really just to sort of step back from the specifics. And if you think a little bit about your best friend or your best boss, what would they tell us about why voters should vote for Matt Wolverton? What would your best friend or best boss say?
Again, I think it's just, if I could, it goes back to impartiality. I have friends and family from all political perspectives and varying backgrounds. And, while I'm sure in sort of my own philosophy and my own look on certain things, I always listen. I always listen to the other side. I like to engage the other side in conversation. And I think it's through that, through that respectful dialogue that we're able to at least obtain some mutual understanding of each other as human beings and so on. We're not necessarily defined by who we are, by what we believe. But it's that process that's so important to me. And I think that any former boss that I had, or current friend or family member would say the same, that Matt has friends from all walks of life, and you know, is able to establish relationships with people from all backgrounds.
Excellent. And I'm pretty sure you've made a few more here tonight. So Nat, thank you so
Thank
much for sharing and for sort of going up first in our night two. I have the great pleasure and opportunity to kick it back to my partner, Megan.
Thank you, Jeannie. And thank you, Matt, very much. All right. We now have Tom McMahon running for Board of Health. Tom, you have me as the partner in crime here to go through the same or similar questions that we just went through for Matt. Starting with, and I know that I introduced this idea, but you know, I really would like to hear, and we would really like to hear, what your vision of Marblehead is.
Okay, there's going to be a lot of overlap with some of Matt's answers, but it really comes down to community engagement. You know, we're such a small town, and that makes us special. And we have so many professionals from different walks of life that, you know, no one has all the answers, which is why you have to engage with the community. And when you're in any leadership role, you have to be accessible and willing to listen. And you also have to have full transparency. And I think that's a word that's been thrown around a lot, and we're not really seeing it. Everyone's kind of like, what, you know, where is this? I don't see what I'm looking for. Transparency is telling a story, you know, when you display what's happening, and whether that's, you know, with financials, anyone needs to look at it and understand exactly what's happening, and it's doable. And, you know, I want to see Marblehead come together with our wealth of knowledge and the leadership roles, knowing that they have to reach out, you know, not just wait for people to come to them, but really reach out and try to find the right answers so that we can make the best decisions for the town. And yeah, that's basically it.
No, I love that. And it's important, and it makes people feel connected to the decision making. And that way they get more involved. And like you said, you know, they make a connection, and maybe they end up helping you with some work group or some project that you have going on. I think it's really important. Obviously, that's one of our premises is civic engagement and being connected. So yes, thank you. I like the idea of you saying that it's more than expecting maybe the citizens just to reach out to you. You've got to do the reaching out as well. So within that, what role do you see yourself playing to fulfill that vision of connectivity, if you will?
Okay, great. I mean, there's a couple areas where I actively, you know, a couple of my things, which I'll bring up later if we talk about my top priorities, would be, you know, when you talk about right now, a lot of times we like to solve problems with money, and it's not always necessary. And so when I look at things like our mental health task force with their massive backlog, and they're look like, well, maybe we can fit in more money the next, you know, fiscal year. That doesn't help. But the thing is, like I said, we have a wealth of professionals in this town, and I'm 2 for 2 right now. And just going to people I know, I don't know a ton of therapists in town. I know they're here, and so, but I'm 2 for 2 and asking them if they would donate, you know, a few hours a month to help their town when it's in need. Both of them said yes. And they just haven't been engaged, but they are willing to do it. And you know, another area where this is important is like, you know, substance abuse and helping educate our youth on making good decisions. Now, we always fall back, you know, right now, I believe, you know, we get a little grant money, and we have the Wahlberg Foundation and give a speech. That has no impact. I went to high school here, middle school here, you know, that's in one ear, out the other. But we have the people in this town who have suffered. You know, I had the ones that struck me hard were, you know, my year was Hunter Craig and John Ogan hit me real hard. And it made it personal, because these were my friends in town, and knowing them and their experience and seeing the hurt that it caused their family, you know, helped me make better decisions. And I think if you can reach out to those families and ask them to speak to the students, you'd have so much more impact than some traveling speaker that just does this for a living. And, you know, you show that these people did grow up in town, and, you know, they played on the same soccer teams. They walked the same halls. I mean, and I know a few of them have tried to do this in the past, to speak to the students, but really, we really need to reach out to them and organize them and really make an impact like that.
I like that. And you know, that's what I'm hearing from it. And your answer so far is to sort of think outside the box, to use your imagination. And I think that is going to be so impactful and necessary if you are going to kind of to evolve into a proactive role as a Board of Health member, you know, in reaching out, and that's what I'm hearing, is that you would like to connect and start up a new program or a new initiative or amplify whatever efforts have been already put in place.
And I think once you make those things, once you create those groups and make them easy to find, you know, so that you can engage with them and people can get involved. Yeah, I think if you really just get it going, it'll just take off on its own. But you got to keep, you know, focused on it. It always has to be something you talk about at every meeting.
Absolutely. And I think it's an important role, especially when it comes to, I know that mental health was those couple years for my kids were really hard for COVID. Just to use that most recent example, you know, my youngest spent her senior year in her bedroom. She's high risk, so she couldn't go to the school at that time. So to know that there would be some avenues, some other programs, initiatives, I really think that's going to be huge, Tom. So thank you very much. How would you define then, if you think of like what we just talked about and all of your great ideas, and then you think about the role and responsibility that is set forth now for the Board of Health, what do you think the role of the Board of Health is sort of set, and could we maybe evolve it into something different or more?
Yeah, you know, I think there's some confusion of how the Board of Health is. Like a lot of our, you know, rules that are health related, you know, they come from a booklet from the state, and those are what we have, and we enforce them with our health director. So the Board of Health's role is to make sure that, you know, kind of those things are happening, but it's also bigger view things. And, you know, it's not all health related. As we know, the Board of Health oversees the transfer station. The transfer station is one of two, I think, revenue generating areas in the town. I believe the harbor master is the only other one. And our transfer station is amazing. But, you know, you have to make sure you're using the right resources to do it. You know, I personally, I work in investment management. We also have multifamily houses, and I do the majority of our renovations. I have an account at the transfer station. I'm up there all the time. And so this is like one of those areas where I see that, you know, the workers there were not engaged on any of the designs. And my friends that have demo companies and construction companies, they were not engaged. So I think the board needs to understand that they need to reach out to everyone in town. So I use the transfer station as an example, but, you know, as I said, you know, you got to reach out to everyone, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, you know, COVID, reaching out to, you know, experts on that. You have to reach out to everyone, and you can't assume you can do it yourself.
No, I like
the board's role is more like oversight and organization in those areas, but then making sure that the main, you know, the state rules are enforced, and our own, you know, the rules that we do make ourselves are also enforced.
And tell us, I know you mentioned, and you and I have talked about separately about this, but maybe let people know, you mentioned that you have an account at the transfer station, and I know I didn't know about that. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
Okay, so sometimes just to be easier, an account is, so everyone has a sticker, you know, and sticker get you to the beach, it'll get you in to throw away your leaves and stuff. An account means that you can show up, you can weigh yourself, you can toss Kay, Mike, and Chris away, you know, and all that, and then you can, they'll charge you at the end of the month. So I'm a frequent user of it. And so one thing I thought about that, like when I saw the designs, I was seeing a lot of holes in it. And, you know, so then I reached out to a lot of people, because even though I am a frequent user, I would never consider myself a qualified opinion compared to, you know, a Kennedy Property Management or Marblehead Movers, you know, Hooper Goodwin, or the workers in general there. And when I found out they weren't consulted about the designs there, and then you look at how much we went into overspending with that, and you're like, well, there's your problem. You didn't reach out to these people. And also on top of that, which people might not think of, you got to reach out to the old time Marbleheaders that know the history of that place, that know where everything changed. And, you know, this used to be buried here and there. Because when they started digging, they were like, oh, we didn't know this was here. It's like, well, did you reach out and ask people? You know, so you wouldn't, you know, we went so wildly over budget on that. And to see that moving forward to complete that, we're still not fixing where we came up short was just disturbing to me. And that's not the way I would do it.
Right. And I know, as I think a lot of people know, who's near and dear to my heart is Kay in the trailer. Yeah. And, you know, she is one of the just kindest human beings. And you know, her health and safety, as well as the guys that she works with, are very important, as not only as a human being, as a Marblehead community member, but you know, I feel and we feel that the town employees are also our collective responsibility, right? They work for us and make sure that our town operate.
So 100%. Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at here with the trailer.
So
yeah. Is
so,
that
so tell me about how, now that I've got at my soapbox, how can we as a community, as a Board of Health, as a Board of Health member, how can we maybe prioritize, I guess would be the word, the health and safety of our employees? And what role would you play?
you know, you got to make yourself accessible to them and make them trust you so that they can reach out to you and be like, hey, you know, I'm seeing this, you know, or, you know, they have reps. Terry is great about advocating for them. And she brought up, you know, and she actively, and I confirmed everything she said on my own, so that is true. But like, you know, that the transfer station was supposed to be finished with the initial amount of money. It wasn't just the backside, it was the top too. And that trailer was supposed to be extremely temporary. Now, what most people wouldn't realize is that you would think we own that trailer. We don't. It's rented. And to swap it out is $1,000. Now, in addition to that, you might have to have plumbers, electricians, and Verizon come to get the, you know, the Wi-Fi for the scale going. But you're only looking at a couple $1,000 bucks. Now, it's long overdue that trailer's should be replaced. And the workers have pointed out there's foul smells in there because there's a rodent issue. Now, we can't just dispel that being like, well, it's, you know, it's the dump. What are you going to do? No, these things like these, it's been there so long that the rats have come up through the floorboards and are infesting that thing. And the workers just don't feel safe. And when you look at the fact that, like, you know, we already went $6 million over budget on that, and we're not going to spend a couple $1,000s to keep the employees happy. It makes no sense to me. And, you know, that needs to be the top priority right away before anything else is done with the transfer station. I was wildly disappointed with the Board of Health's view when at the town meeting, people said they, you know, the Board of Health said they reached out to the state, and the state said they didn't need to replace it because it wasn't rats, it's mice. Really? You know, I couldn't believe that answer when I heard it, because I thought that they had agreed on a previous meeting that they were going to replace it. I thought we were moving in the right direction, and clearly we're not. And, you know, that's a day one thing. It's a no-brainer.
Well, that's actually, thank you for the segue, because the next question was about your priorities. And thank you so much for taking care of Kay and our employees up there, because it just, it's so important to me. But that's enough of that. So more importantly is your priorities. What would be your maybe top 3 priorities of when you're elected?
Yeah, well, I have 4, and we've kind of dug into them. So the transfer station is number 1. You know, I do think they need to put everything on pause, and I think they need to take the designs they have, bring them to the workers, bring them to the regular users. I mean, I sat in the House of Pizza talking to Hooper Goodwin. I don't know if there's anyone in town that knows more about the history of that place than him.
Agreed.
So,
100% agree. Yes.
Yeah. Put those designs in front of him and see what he thinks. And, you know, I saw lots of crossover there, and in my head, I'm like, that's going to cause an accident. But I defer to Chris and Mike, and, you know, and who work there, to see, because they're on the ground, boots on the ground, and see what they think. And, you know, really get the best plan going. And so we can do this in a fiscally responsible manner by getting it right the first time. But also, there were some promises made that weren't kept. We can't disregard Arnold Terrace. Arnold Terrace had a lot of promises made regarding, you know, because now the transfer station's in their backyard. I know there was a lot of trees that were promised there, and you know, somehow that needs to be made right. It can't be ignored, and you know, we need to respect the fact that we had an agreement with them, and they are wildly upset. It was so sad when I was going over to meet Arnold Terrace, and they saw my truck, which looks ridiculous, says Tom McMahon Board of Health on it. And one woman came out and she was like, "You're ruining our street." And I was like, "I'm not on the Board of Health. I'm trying to fix it." You know, she was in tears. And I was like, "Oh my God, you know, this is terrible." And so I was engaging with them and telling them how they could show up to the next meeting where the plans were going to be. And a lot of them did. And it was great. You got to hear their input. And we need to respect that they had promises made that weren't kept. And so the transfer station is a big one. You know, like I said, it's a money generator. It all goes into one big pool. And when we talk about fiscal responsibility, everyone needs to play their role. And the Board of Health with the transfer station absolutely we need to make sure that we're spending responsibly because we can't go that far over budget again. I kind of gave my ideas for mental health and substance abuse slash educating, teenagers on making smart decisions. I've actually talked, people hand me names all the time when they hear my ideas being like, oh, if you talk to this person, I go, nope, but I will. And I reach out and I have a bunch of names in mind of people to put, right at the top of this, but I want to be involved too. I don't just want to say, I'm about to raise a daughter here. And, I want her to be safe at that school. And I know some of the people that have been affected by that, they have kids too. And, they want us to have the educated students and stuff. So, and like, as we know, the mental health, it just can't wait. That's, you got to do whatever you can. If there's, if they can't do any money, you got to get creative. And, mandate wise too is the last one. I know that's a big one. It was very divisive. I think that, we do have to learn to live with COVID, and, I'm not pro making any more mandates. I was very unhappy with the fact that all the businesses were muted on the call when a mandate was made where they were financially impacted on it. They should have been heard. They had one question that was asked over and over again that was never answered. What metrics are you using? And that's transparency. And it was never answered so they felt blindsided and they felt disrespected. And these are mom and pop shops, and they're the heart and soul of this town. And that can't happen. They can disagree with the decision all they want, but they need to be given answers and they need to understand why it's being done. And I went around talking to a lot of them to see, and they were really upset. And so it's not an anti-mask thing. We need to learn to respect everyone's decision. If a store wants to have a mask mandate, you want to use that store, you got to wear a mask. That's just how it is. And if someone wants to wear masks or some store doesn't have it, you got to, maybe you want to shop somewhere else if you think it's important, but you got to respect people on the street. Everyone's choice is their choice. And, we need to move forward civilly in that respect.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for all of your incredibly thoughtful and authentic responses. I so appreciate your time. And so now we'll end on a fun one, which is, what would your best friend or best boss say why we should vote for you?
Okay, that would be my current boss. I'm on paternity leave now. And so this sounds like it's going to be one way, but I have to explain it. So I worked for the company Eaton Vance that we got acquired by Morgan Stanley. So now Morgan Stanley, but I always consider myself Eaton Vance. And when we'd walk around, me and her, she would always call me the mayor of Eaton Vance. And that's not from a leadership role by any stretch of the imagination. I work in data quality. I hate picking up my phone. I hate reaching out to people over chat, and I hate doing it via email. I am all about the face-to-face. And so I will go up and, Eaton Vance, my company, had a great open door policy, which facilitated that. And I got to know so many people, in a company with, 700 or so in Boston. So when I walked around the halls, I'd be saying hi to everybody on the way. And so she would just jokingly call me the mayor of Eaton Vance. But it was all just because of communication. And I think that helps me here too with Marblehead. I love the engagement. I put my email on all my signs. I want you emailing me, asking me questions. I hate social media, but I made a Facebook page so people can reach out to me. I put magnets on my truck. It looks ridiculous, but I want people to know exactly where I am so they can stop me and ask me questions. You've probably seen me standing up at the transfer station across the street 4 to 5 hours on a Saturday, or random parts in Marblehead now in the mornings. I want you to stop and talk to me, and people do. I even wear a shirt with my name on it that looks ridiculous, but people will be like, "Are you that guy?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, what's up? Let's talk." So it's been amazing. I love hearing from people. I love engaging with them. Every sign I've dropped off, everyone knows I don't just put it on your lawn. I come up and knock on your door, ring your doorbell. And I usually end up staying there for 10, 15 minutes. By the end of the day, my wife's like, "Where have you been?" I'm like, "I only got 10 houses done right now." So, but I love the engagement with the community. That's me. That's my personality. And I think it will work well in this role.
I 100% agree. One of my favorite parts, and we've made a joke of it, is you can't go to Crosby's and think they're just going to get your milk, eggs, and butter. You're going to go in and you're going to go in that first aisle and you're going to run into that person you haven't seen in 10 years. And you're going to go 2 more aisles. And then pretty soon it's an hour and you still only have your milk and your eggs and you forgot your butter. So that's one of my favorite parts about this town is that I'm the same way. I talk to everybody. So, and my family laughs with me as well. So I'm so appreciative of your time, and thank you very much for everything. And don't forget to put your contact information in the chat in case people have you.
And thank you for putting this on. It was, it's great. This is a great way to, for people to hear what we have to say. It's awesome.
Well, it is. It's really been fun for us too, I have to tell you. And I hope we can do something once you guys are all elected. I hope we can do something more regular, something like this. So we'll have to put thinking of, our imagination and think of ways that we can keep this going. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to switch over to the school committee. Is Sarah, are you ready? I can't see you. Oh, there you are. Good. All right. Well, welcome. Allison and Sarah are here, and we thank you. Oh, let me click. Sorry. Let me click. Unfortunately, Reese Dahlberg could not make it this evening, so we just have Allison and Sarah to wow us, which will be amazing. And I will start with you, Sarah, if that's okay, and start with the same question of what is your vision for our beloved Marblehead?
Thank you. And just fair warning, the minute I got on, I heard little feet. So they were good for that. And they saved it up for me. My vision of Marblehead is that we can get to a place where the presentation of new ideas is not seen as an affront on our rich history. I really envision a community where questions and constructive feedback are welcomed as a pathway to improvement rather than labeled as destructive. If we can strike a balance between the need for innovation and carrying on of traditions that are working, we will be able to create a really wonderful legacy for the Marblehead future generations.
No, I agree. I love the idea and the sharing of ideas, like Tom and I were just talking about, sharing new ideas and bouncing ideas off of each other should be a positive thing. So yes. Within that, what role do you see yourself playing to fulfill that vision?
So the role of the school committee is very clear. It's been outlined and laid out with the Education Reform Act. We have very prescribed duties. And a lot of times people run and want to get involved and don't really understand. A lot of the feedback we get is not in our purview. So what is our role and what is our purview is the supervision, hiring, or termination of the superintendent, and we oversee policy and budget. There's a few other roles that we hire, but once they're hired, they're not under our purview, they're under the purview of the superintendent. We've no purview over the day-to-day operations, which a lot of people really don't understand. So I think that it's really important to remember that in your capacity as a school committee member, that you need to remain in an oversight role at all times, acting as good stewards for what will deliver the best outcomes for what is important. It's our students. And that we really need to be aware that every decision we have has an effect on student outcomes. And I believe that you should always use that guidance of how will this affect our students as your guiding principle, while still maintaining your responsibility to the taxpayers.
No, thank you. That it's absolutely, and you have, in watching you on the school committee, that is definitely how you treat every committee, every decision, every project. So thank you for that. How would you define, well, you kind of answered this, but, maybe as an individual rather than as a team, as the team, or maybe, sorry, as an individual who is part of a team, how would you, what am I trying to say? The role and responsibility that you have as a school committee member, maybe that rather bring into an individual rather than team level.
So you want me to speak what my particular role and responsibility is?
Yes.
Okay.
How you view it.
So, it's my role to come to every meeting, and I'm sorry, let me know if you have background noise.
It doesn't matter. You've got kids. They're on the school committee. It would be, so don't worry about it.
Usually for meetings, we're much better at this, but Matt had to go juggle some kids. So really, as an individual, it's my responsibility. I need to come to meetings prepared. I need to have done all my prep work. I need to know what's on the agenda, be well versed in it, be prepared to make an educated vote. But I also need to be accessible to the community. When people reach out to us, which they often do, I need to give them feedback. I have to be willing to talk to them. A lot of times I hear from people who have very opposing views to myself. It is not my job to sell my view. It is my job to hear what other people's view is and to be open to that and to then kind of.
Uh-oh, I lost you.
How long have I been muted for? The whole
No,
time?
I was just about to go, okay, wait. Who's hitting the buttons? Someone sit down there hitting the buttons.
I didn't do it. My hands were talking. How much should I rewind?
No, you're good. You just about your, you got into your showing up and doing your part and
So you
listening
need to
to
show
people.
up. You need to have done your homework. You need to
Yep.
be prepared to vote on the items on your agenda,
Yep.
but you also need to be accessible to people. And that's not just the people that are agreeing with you, because it's really easy to be accessible to those people. I think it's more important to be accessible to the people that don't agree with you, because it's really important to hear other points of view, because we don't just represent certain aspects of our students or certain portions of our town. We really need to listen to what people have to say and bring forth their concerns, even if we don't necessarily agree to them. We are a vehicle to bring forth those concerns within our purview. So I guess really as an individual, you just have to become prepared and I would say most importantly, be open to debate. Be open to talk about a particular agenda item, disagree, agree, but take it as the item on the agenda and not personalize it to the person who's speaking. And then on the next agenda item, be willing to wipe the slate clean and really come afresh to look at it with clear eyes. I think sometimes there's a feeling that if a particular person presents an idea, that it's personified, the idea is personified from its presenter. And I think that there's a danger in that, and everybody's got something to offer. We really just need to be able to have professional, constructive debate.
No, I agree, and that is something that is tricky, but it is definitely something that's necessary in order to move you forward, right? You can't, if you agree on everything, I don't feel like you are actually maybe testing or challenging yourself to what you could accomplish at a different level, perhaps, or something new. So thank you for that. I'm going to switch now. I think I've asked all the questions here. For the general questions, I'll switch over to Jeannie. Do you want me to switch over to Allison now, or would you like me to wait until you've done some of the more detailed questions?
I think it's good to do the Allison and
part, right?
Yeah, and Sarah part like we did last night.
Okay,
I've been watching. I'm curious to hear Allison get a chance to chime in while this conversation is still fresh.
I feel like I'm going to be a Pete and repeat of a lot of what's
that's all right.
said.
No way, it's all
Can
good.
I just say I second that motion? Does everybody get? No, I'm kidding.
That's all you need to say. Just second. That's second. So Allison, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Similar questions. We can go off, a little bit, because I know it is hard being the second one rather than the first. But can you tell us a little bit about your vision for Marblehead?
Yeah. So I grew up here. I don't know, I was probably 24 hours old when I came home. I'm too young to have been born at Mary Alley. Came home to the house my mom still lives in on Lafayette Street. So I've lived here all my life. I went through the schools here, very much like what Tom had mentioned. I have a lot of friends here still. I love talking to people. I love going places. Although I would add, Megan, that when I go to Crosby's with makeup on, I don't see a soul. And I only see every person that I haven't seen in a decade when I'm a hot mess. So they're probably asking who this person is when they look at the picture and they're like, I don't remember her. But I think my vision, very similar. So it's probably not going to be surprising, very similar to Sarah, in that I would like to see us marry some modern themes of our traditions here as a small town coastal community, right? I think there are so many wondrous things that brings to the table. I just think that there are some of those things that we need to be a little more modern in regards to. So things like being more transparent and provide, it's on my sign, it's something I've said it in every question nearly, being more transparent to our community, because that's what makes us such a wonderful community, and that we can work together. And I feel perhaps to no one's fault that we've lost a little bit of that. And I would like to bring that true community feeling back, so that we understand everybody's coming from a place of good, and that we are sharing everything that we can with each other. Because as Tom mentioned, just to kind of bring it full circle, one person doesn't know everything. You have to be able to connect with people. You have to be able to get different points of views and different perspectives. And you have to be able to hear those perspectives. It can't be a one-way discussion. And so my vision would be to bring that together, and to bring transparency to the things that I think we've missed out on for a while. And the community can feel a little bit jaded sometimes as a result of that. And again, not to anybody's specific fault.
Right.
Everybody has improvements. We all can be better, humans in general. But I think that that's really one of the things that I would like, as a vision for our town and for our particular board in this town, because while it's school committee, school centric, particularly with overrides and budgets, it touches so many different facets. And I think that it's important to remember that, and important to remember that, it's our community that can build us up.
I like that. That's a great tagline, our community that can build us up. And you, as a school committee, school board member, do take care of the most precious little beings that we have in this town. So I applaud your commitment to bringing the community together. That has been the prevailing theme, both last night and tonight. And it's something that all the candidates so far have said they want. So it really gives us hope that January 22nd, we have this collective vision of let's work together, let's build our community, let's help each other, and let's dial into the community resources like you and Tom have said, that are here and want to help but don't know how to help. Absolutely. So I love that. Just makes me happy all over. So you would be a new person on the board with incumbents that have been there for several terms. Yeah. How, given that vision, and not that not pretend like not everybody is maybe aligned with that vision, how would you as an individual make sure that your committee performs that way? Yeah, so again, I'll try and say it in a different way than Sarah did. I think we one of the things that I've mentioned before in responding to questions, that we need to lead by example. We have to be able to have the difficult questions, to have the difficult discussions. And again, I'm repeating myself, but to understand that we're coming from a place of good. Sarah said the same, something similar, but, we need to know that when someone asks a question or asks for detail or asks for, the backup or the proof or whatever term you want to coin there, phrase you want to coin, it's coming from a place of good. And there's a reason for that. It's not personal. It's not an attack. It's not an affront. It's not because we don't trust or embrace all of the other views in the room and beliefs in the room. It's just, we want to have those discussions and we want to know those details. I think if we want to perform at our best, we have to understand those details. And those are details also, quite frankly, that I feel the community needs and deserves, right? They are the ones that are going to, or not, elect us. And they deserve to understand those details as well. So I think leading by example in being able to graciously answer questions that you may in another life think were personal, but also being able to craft questions and ask the questions in a way that people understand. I really love this idea. I'd love to hear a little bit more about why you think we should go with A instead of B. Sometimes it's even just the words you use, and we all know that 70-80% is the tone of the words that you're saying. So yeah. Keeping that in mind, and kind of in my professional career, always having to have that in the back of my mind, I
would like to think that that would come in a little bit handy in being able to broach those topics and to continue to try to push the conversation forward about, you know, a number of the different potentially not, I don't want to say conversations that have conflict, but, you know, potentially difficult conversations. I feel like that's really the best way to say it.
I think we have to get past the idea that we have to always, I think it's not that we always have to agree, but that we shouldn't disagree. And that's where I feel like what I'm hearing from you is that we should be comfortable disagreeing as long as everybody
Absolutely.
is respectful, right? Because
Correct.
how boring if we did all agree on
Right.
every single issue. Oh
Right.
my goodness.
Even if we all like the same color, if we all like the same food, drove the same car, whatever it might be, you know, we have to embrace those differences, embrace, you know, it's part of diversity as well, to embrace that and to understand that everybody is coming to the table with a different perspective, with a different background, with a different experience. Perhaps they've talked, you know, like Tom said, talking to people. I'm huge on that. And so having spoken with so many different people, you want to bring that to the table too, because again, your community wants to feel heard. I think that's important.
And actually how Power Up came to be was there was an issue and I was trying to figure out what is going on, how did this happen, who's in charge, you know, who's the decision maker. And it was really, it was impossible to find. And it was, and to have somebody, you know, that was in place that understood that and said, look, you know, pulled me aside and said, this is what's happening. These are what's on, this is what the decision we're making. This is why we need to make this decision. It would just have been, it was just been so reassuring to know that, and especially again, going to these decisions that are affecting our kids. So I appreciate that. And you know, my other question was about what experience that you have, but it sounds like a lot of your experience is in crafting questions the right way, and to, you know, to be comfortable with possibly a little discomfort to get through and find, because in that discomfort and in that disagreement, you know, I feel like a creativity is there, an imagination or a new idea it could possibly be developed.
Right, a different approach. Absolutely. I think, so I'm a civil engineer, to nerd out on you, but for the last more years than I want to discuss, I have been, you know, the director of customer success at a number of different startups, as well as brick and mortar companies. So brick and mortar meaning established companies, not startups. And that role, you know, while the title's kind of a newish type title, I suppose, from a LinkedIn perspective, you will find that that's the goal of the role, right? You need to be able to interact with levels, all different levels within an organization with your customers. And I have had private sector customers. I've had more government customers than anything. And sometimes those can be the hardest. Those can be the ones that have the least money, that we need to find those creative solutions because they don't have the funds for whatever project we might be working on, right? And finding those creative solutions and coming to an agreement, particularly in the government sector, you have people that are used to doing things how they've been done, and they're very happy with that way. And you want to embrace that happiness, but also teach them how much better it can be with this tweak or that tweak, and learning how to have those difficult conversations and being comfortable with the uncomfortable is more important than I care to admit. My level of comfort with discomfort is probably very high, but I have prided myself, you know, for my whole life of just being able to approach things that way and being confident enough that as a collective, we have the brains and the brawn and we can get through it. And we can get to the other side. You just kind of have to get through those icky spots.
Yes, I definitely, I have full confidence.
I have a child, I just the word icky.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay. You can use the word icky. Well, I think that is, I thank you for all of those thoughtful answers. I'm going to pass it over to Jeannie and give you a little rest and go over to Sarah for a bit for the few more board specific questions. Jeannie, would you like to take over from here?
Yes, and thank you, Megan. So just as sort of the panel, as you saw earlier, we had a couple of specific questions for each role. And this one is kind of a unique one. And Sarah, I will start with you so Allison catches her breath a little bit. But then we'll come back on this one sort of in sort of a tandem. We do have something else to vote on related to schools this June, and it's been a hot topic. So what we'd really like to understand, we're definitely interested to hear what you're, are you supporting the school budget override? But that's just sort of an opening bid. What we really want to understand in the context of tonight's conversation is, assuming it passes, what would be the way that you would act as a school committee member, were you there, in terms of ensuring that it's effectively and transparently managed? And the reason we're going for this question is everything that you both have said, this is the use case of it. It's the hard things that we have to do well that get us to a place where we do have the trust and the community spirit. So that's really at the core of this question. So sort of the two-part, is your support for the budget override, and if passed, what actions you would take for transparency and effectiveness of how it gets managed. So Sarah, to you first.
Thank you. I support the school override. Definitely. I had the opportunity to come to Power Up and present to you guys some information about it before town meeting, which I was grateful for. And while there are definitely aspects of the override that I felt need, and I still feel need a bit more work, I can say with 100% certainty that I know our current budget extremely well, and that I know that we have been underfunded for many years. For many years, we've relied on private funding, whether it's through our PTOs or PCOs, friends in the Marblehead public schools, grants, private donations, whatever form of community support you can think of to bridge those gaps between what our students need and what is provided for them through our operating budget. I have some concern areas, and I will continue to advocate for those concern areas, because at the end of the day, everything to me is through the lens of how does this affect our students and how can we maximize student impact. So I definitely, will continue to do that. As an oversight role, this is a perfect question because this really encapsulates what the role of the school committee is. So to have, if it passes, which, we hope for our students that it does, or I hope for our students that it does, to effectively and transparently manage this, I would say it's the same way that we should be managing our budget every year. I don't really see that there's that we should be doing anything differently. This is the same thing I've always done as far as the budget goes, which is, our role as supervising the superintendent, make sure that our superintendent is acting with fidelity to what we presented to the community this budget would represent and would prioritize and make sure that we are giving the community what we promised, which is something we should always be doing. And that would be, again, like in the capacity of oversight for the superintendent. But as far as budgetary concerns go, I will, as I have been, keeping a very close eye tracking our budget. And that doesn't just mean looking at our expenditures to date as they pertain to what we allocated for specific line items, but also having a really strong comprehension of what our budget encapsulates and what, for instance, at the end of the year, you might hear we have a surplus. And so right away, people say, well, we have a surplus, we must have too much money. And you really have to dig a little bit deeper and understand what is going on in our budget. And this is the same way you'd have to track the override. For instance, we aren't spending our full line item on certain personnel because we can't hire them. We've had positions that have been posted and sat empty all year with no applications coming in. So that money sits as a surplus. So it's not that we have extra money or that we're overfunded. It's that service isn't happening or someone else is doing twice the jobs that they're getting paid to do. So we really need to keep tight eye on not just what our year-to-date spending is, but what our year-to-date spending should be if allocated appropriately and filling all of our positions. Because unless we fill the positions, we're not giving 100% of the impact to our students. So keeping a tight view on what's going out, what's coming in through our revolving funds. Are our expenditures overreaching one area? I might be getting too granular for you guys, but I think you get the idea that I keep a very, very tight oversight of what is going on in our budget at all
Great.
times.
No, that's helpful. So we've got sort of support it. You kind of have the backdrop of why, and really, if it were to pass, be as vigorous as it's just part of the budget then, and all the rigor and transparency. So Allison, in terms of your sense of where you view the override at this point, and if you were to join the school board, what would be your perspective on that effectiveness and transparency related to the override?
Yeah. So, when you think about the override, clearly it's a lot of money. At the same time, I have a child in the school, and I would move heaven and earth to get him whatever it is he needs. I would move heaven and earth to get any child what they need in a public education. I think that there is nothing more important than providing that education, because they are our future. And so that's critical. I also understand that it's a lot of money. And I have a mother who is retired, who also, will be affected by that. Everybody is going to be affected by it, but so I understand that aspect of it as well. What I'm hoping to get, I was not able to attend the morning session because I am a true single mom and I work full time from home, but I am going to attend the evening sessions, and I'm really hoping to get some more detailed answers that I'm looking for, around budgetary items, around how we're going to spend this money. I have looked at a photocopy version of the binder. It was a lot to go through, and not having the, some of the context that Sarah's blessed to have, having already been on the committee. I do hope to get some more of those clarifications in those meetings. And I do think, from my perspective, should I be elected, transparency would be, as it says in my sign, or I've said that a million times tonight, transparency would be the key for me. I feel like a lot of people are feeling reticent or hesitant about this budget in the community because they don't feel like there has been transparency. That's not necessarily done on purpose, not necessarily done in any bad vein. I think sometimes the perception of something is not necessarily the reality. And the way you get over that is by providing that transparency, providing the detail, answering the questions, making sure that you have enough sessions so that everybody can attend, from, whether it's retired folks that like to do the coffees in the morning or the working parents that need to go in the evening, ensuring that they have that opportunity to ask those questions and provide that transparency is key. And I think being accountable, which is the other word on my sign, is really what happens after it passes, right? We need to make sure that we are holding ours, at that point, if I'm elected and it passes, then that's holding myself accountable as well, just as much as the other members of the board, to continue to hold our feet to the fire to ensure that we are doing what we said we were going to do with this money, and that it is absolutely unequivocally benefiting our children, because there's nothing more important. And that's what we all want, regardless of where you sit on any issue. There's no one that could disagree with that. I hope. I never say never, but so similar to what Sarah said about making sure that all of this enormous amount of money that we're asking for is going directly to our children, and they are directly seeing the benefit of that, whether that's with teachers, with new resources, solar panels, because sustainability is so crucial in 2022. All of those things are critical.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I'm actually going to stay with you because I want you to have the opportunity to have the first at bat. Sometimes the back and forth, you need to think
so
about
I don't just eat and repeat.
Our an odd number of questions to find a way to get sort of first everywhere. Next year will be better. So when we think about, we talked about the budget and the overrides, we're going to set that aside. And as you both have articulated better than I will right now, other than that, which is not a little bit, the school committee or the school board really thinks about policy setting and district leadership. So within that realm, what would be your top priorities to address if elected?
Yeah, so some of the same themes I feel still kind of carry through. Ensuring that documentation and agenda items are available for the public to be able to review, and ensuring that they have adequate time to review and adequate time to speak and ask their questions, I think is very important, and that helps lend to the transparency of the board and the committee itself, so that folks understand where we're coming from and feel like they're having more of a conversation with us. I noted in one of the other forums that I think allowing to have conversations, so whether it's through Power Up, which would be phenomenal, or an open forum with the school committee, being able to have more conversational type discussions with the public, above board, not private conversations, of course, following all the correct rules, no open meeting law violations, but making sure that we have that transparency, continue that transparency with everything that we're doing, whether it's the METCO program, which I think we definitely need to take a deep dive in and get that. We had a METCO program when I was growing up. My mom still has the sticker on her door that, it used to show that you were a METCO home. And it was such a robust, fantastic program back then. And I think, making sure that we do what we can to assist there, and that we're addressing those questions and those concerns. And having that, again, I keep saying transparency, but I just think it is so important in order to gain back the trust from some of the community members that I think we may have lost a little bit of. And the other item that I think would be most important, that is near and dear to my heart, is ensuring that we're providing an exemplary education to our students. It's, as Sarah has said, it's not in our purview to pick the books or to select the math problems that they're going to do on a daily basis. Absolutely not. But setting those policies and ensuring that we are enabling our teachers with the resources they need. And that resource, it could be a book, not picking the book, but, ensuring that they have the funds to get the book, ensuring that they have the funds to be able to have aides in the room, ensuring that that money is going to those places so that these teachers can be able to provide. We have such amazing, amazing teachers and staff at our school, hands down. And we need to be able to enable them. We need to make sure that we are enabling them to be able to work at their best so that they can give the best to our children. Otherwise, it's unfair to expect that one teacher would be able to teach all levels of a second grade class like my son's teacher does now. It's simply impossible. You could, managing them to get 22 students to sit in a seat for a half an hour is hard enough, never mind the different levels of math or reading, that type of thing. So really that would be probably my biggest passion, is ensuring that we go in that direction.
It absolutely resonates with me. As both of my girls have finished the Marblehead schools, but one is halfway through her program of study to become an art educator. So I'm
So
obviously big advocate of people who are advocates for teachers at this.
Yeah, my mother is a teacher, so yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome.
I understand how hard it is.
So Sarah, again, we're coming back to you on this one. And again, we're going to forget the money. We're going to leave that aside. We're just going to focus on your priorities around policy setting and district leadership if you're reelected.
When you say forget the money, I'm always like, wait.
In the context of this,
Okay.
I want to give you a 60-second vacation.
yeah.
It's funny. Someone taught me once, I don't know what the question is, but I can tell you the answer is money. Because it all comes back. How are we funding it? How are we funding? So for my priorities, I would say, money aside, would be to work on creating the next steps of planning for success. We started planning for success. It was a great first step, but there needs to be more work done. We need to move it to the next level to have a clear action plan, which I would like to develop. I would like to develop a clear strategic plan with action items, budget drivers, timelines, things like that. And something that we can use and really not just create and put on a shelf, but really use as our guiding force as we move through the next 5 years in our district. I think it's really important that we parlay that work, we harness that good work that we've started, and that we just take it to the next level to really produce the outcome we need. And then my other priority would be addressing the learning loss and regression that came out of the pandemic. I think this needs to be a clear directive made to the leadership team that we want to develop a multi-year plan that will that shows us how we will mitigate this. This is not going to be quick. It's not going to be 1 year. It needs to be well thought out. Everybody needs to know their roles that are being played in this, but it needs to be aligned too, because if we're going to catch these kids up, you can't expect a third grade teacher to catch their children up from, an interrupted first and second grade year. It has to be streamlined to be done in steps along the way to get our kids where they need to go. Some of our kids in the high school level don't have many years to make up for that learning loss. So we just need to have that directive go out to our leadership, that not only do we need to develop that plan and implement it, it needs to be communicated to the community. Everyone needs to know what the plan is, who's in charge of what parts, and how we're going to do this.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. While I have you, I'll give you the best friend, best boss. So your favorite boss or your best friend is what would they tell us about why we should vote for Sarah Fox?
I'm going to take it a step further. And I think that even the people that don't agree with me and aren't my best friend and aren't my best boss will tell you the same reason why they're supporting me. And that is because whether you agree with me or you don't agree with me on every topic, and I don't expect anybody to agree with me on every topic, I come prepared. I do my homework. I always can ask questions. I always have dialogue. When I cast a vote on something, it has been well thought out and well vetted. The big joke is, who has a question? I'm always like, me. But at the end of the day, there's no stone left unturned. I know what I'm voting on. I know whether it's a vote or a discussion item, I'm prepared and I'm accessible. Anybody can reach out to me. Half the town has my phone number. Anybody that doesn't, you probably have a friend that does, and feel free to cold call me. I don't care. People stop me on my front lawn. I really will talk to anybody, hear from anybody. It doesn't have to be just a friendly face. It can be someone that says, I think you're doing a really terrible job and this is why, because that is important. Because I'm a big believer that if you can't identify a problem, you can't fix it. You have to clearly identify a problem to then be able to dissect it and move on and fix it. And
excellent. I love that. Allison, we're giving you the last word. So it's best friend, favorite boss, or most satisfied customer, or if you want to be paired with Sarah again, least of all of those. What would they tell us about why we should?
One of
vote
my
for
best friends
Allison
is here. Should
Taylor?
I get her on the camera and ask? I'm just kidding. She's freaking out. No.
Bring her up. I love this.
Right.
Phone a friend.
So it takes, like I said, I'm a single mom, so it takes a village. She's watching my son, but I think probably what, similar to what Sarah said, what anyone would say about me is that I'm not afraid to have the hard discussions and that I'm not afraid to sit at the table with anyone to have those hard discussions. I think regardless of whether you're a parent or whether it's, a teacher or another school committee member, being respectful and mindful that everybody comes from a different place, but always knowing, like I said, to kind of bring it full circle, that we're all coming from a place of good. This is everything we do is for our children. Everything we do is for these students that come up through Marblehead and essentially become part of our community in many cases, right? Like Tom and I. So we need to make sure that we're able to have those discussions, and for better or worse, because like Sarah said, it's not necessarily always the best thing to be able to not be afraid of having those discussions. But that is really how I feel. And that's how I always behave in my professional and my personal life. I think that's what they both would say.
Well, thank you. And the two of you, here I am thinking, so we have a modern coastal community that values tradition and welcomes change. In everything that you both have said to us. So that's a big wow from me. And I am very appreciative. Before I flip it back to Megan, I have one more reminder for everybody that has joined us tonight, because this question came up a few times. Everyone running for office of the positions that we have here, we didn't cover every, but if you were running for select board, schools, light, board of health, moderator, you were invited. So thank you to the folks who are here tonight, and in absentia again to the folks who were here last night, for coming out and helping Power Up do our first sort of forum of candidates by Zoom. Like, we really appreciate your trusting us join our space and be in this community. So thank you. And back to you, Megan, to wrap us up.
Oh my gosh, such amazing conversation that we've had. Jeannie, thank you for a great job. Sarah and Allison, stellar answers, thoughtful answers, which are always so appreciated. These last two nights have been really, really enjoyable. I don't even have the words right now. We are so fortunate to have these candidates who are volunteering their time, not only to come and speak to our community here, but to actually put their hat in the ring and run for office. Here at Power Up, we consider ourselves a platform for people who have a passion for community and have a passion for Marblehead, and then want to put their passion into action. And I can't think of better examples than the candidates that we've had here the last couple nights. So wonderful. Sarah Fox has raised her hand. So Sarah, do you want to come off?
Oh,
mute?
she has a question.
Oh yeah, no questions. Just kidding.
If I know I'm going off the prescribed list, but I want to take this opportunity to thank Allison and to play on what Megan said a little bit about how we're so fortunate to have volunteers that want to come and run and do these things. And I know that, there's been over the last few years, sometimes elections in town become personal attacks or become difficult. And I think although it's painful to be the recipient of that, I think the biggest casualty is we have a town that is blessed with tremendous talent, people of every imaginable gift that would be a gigantic asset to our civic boards. And when people don't conduct themselves above board in these races, what it does is it scares away wonderful talent. If we can get to a point where there's 20 people that want to run for a board, we're a success. We have not scared away people. So I just want to thank her. She's been a great person. I didn't know her prior, but she's been a respectful, I don't want to say opponent, but it's the type of thing you want to see to encourage future people to run. And I just want to take that opportunity to remind people, if we keep doing it this way, we'll have lots of talent coming to the table in years in the future.
No, thank you, Sarah. And I concur. And I think that's another one of our reasons for being here as Power Up is to promote people to not only to get in. Now you two cut it out. Let me finish the sentence. That people will see the role models, right? They see the people that come up, they'll see our format and they'll see that this is comfortable. This is a conversation. This is, hey, I can do this. I can see where I can help in A, B, or C committee. And I hope that we can continue doing that and keep building, because it is important. And we are based on volunteers. A great part of our democracy, our structure here in town is based on volunteers. Miss Allison, go ahead, take yourself on mute, my friend.
I can't say that without having a response.
It's
Obviously, first of all,
love.
I know it's like a love fest. What's happening? First of all, thank you to Power Up, for having this and having this comfortable conversation. I think we all appreciate that. But I do also want to recognize Sarah, because I think it is easy to come. It's easier to come to the table when you have someone that's very welcoming and warm about it. And she has, become almost a trusted advisor because her experience here is vast. And I find myself fortunate to, whether I make it on the committee or not, to, have started a friendship with her. I think that I would look forward to having those difficult conversations. I know we won't agree with everything, but that's okay. We're grown-ups and we can get past that. And I appreciate everything that she's done to help me kind of as I nervously and sweatily, it's a good thing there's no smell-o-vision here, come to these forums. So I'm grateful and thankful.
You're welcome. And we're all, again, just appreciate you guys being here, but we do want to be considerate of your time Your children are probably more than ready to have your attention. I know baby V is probably up. Little V McMahon might be awake and ready for some attention from dad. But let's be sure as engaged citizens that we follow these candidates on social media. We look to maybe see how we can hold a sign at the transfer station, because that's the place to be the Saturday before elections, just in case you don't know. Have a little fun with it, meet some new people, engage in those dialogues, say hello, meet a new friend. Call 10 friends and ask them to vote and remind them to vote. It's really easy to get caught up in your day and forget, but June 21st is really important for so many reasons. Let's make sure these candidates who have given their time and their energy and their effort and their commitment, the votes that they deserve. So thank you everybody for being here.
I'm
Follow
going
us.
to break our rule of coming off check, because this one's really important. Thank you, Renee. Please remind everyone, absentee ballot deadline, June 14th at 5 p.m.
Yes, thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yes.
Make
Please
a plan, vote, bring a friend.
make a note, and good night. Follow us at Power Up 01945. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Oh, look at all the faces.